Should the Dallas Cowboys consider giving Osa Odighizuwa a contract right now after another big performance against Seattle? All that and so much more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. We are enjoying our Victory Monday because the Cowboys won on Thursday against the Seahawks. Also because the Eagles lost. It also makes it a little bit sweeter, right?
We'll take that one too.
Yeah, of course. So we're going to break down some more of the things that we saw on tape from the Cowboys win against the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football. And Landon, let's start with Osa Odighizuwa, who had just another incredible game against the Seahawks. Right now on Pro Football Focus, he's the number 5 graded, or he's the 5th highest graded defensive tackle in the league. He's number 1 in win rate among defensive tackles. Should the Cowboys consider giving him a deal right now?
Yeah, I mean, they should. I mean, the Cowboys have not had a quality defensive lineman playing like this, an interior defensive lineman playing like this in a long time. I mean, I'm trying to think back of the last time.
Jay Ratliff is probably the last one.
Ratliff was the one that came into my mind too, and that was a long time ago. 15 years, 10 years. So, I think, the Cowboys have had a couple of different guys that have played pretty good football for them interior. I look at Malik Collins, who is actually playing pretty good football for Houston right now, or I don't think right now because I think he's hurt, but was playing good football. But I do think that Osa is a guy that, is that kind of penetrating interior guy that you really are looking forward to having on the team, especially in this kind of defense. In a system in which you've had to kind of make do at times with defensive ends, kind of reducing down to play defensive tackle. He is a true defensive tackle who can also give you the pass rush you need, can also hold up against double teams, is winning at an incredibly high rate. I think you and I were just talking about that not only is he the 5th highest graded PFF defensive interior, but I think he's the highest rated as far as win rate goes, a defensive interior player in the NFL. So, I think he has a very unique skill set. He provides exactly what the Cowboys want at the position. I think it's going to be tough, honestly, because I think he's kind of outplayed his draft position. He's outplayed a lot of expectations. Yep. And those numbers can be big for defensive interior. So
and I got him right here. So
let's hear it.
Aaron Donald got a contract, I believe it was this year, last year, $31.6 million a year. He's not getting that. The next one is Quentin Williams at $24 million, Jeffrey Simmons at $23. The range of guys that I'm kind of looking at is like Jaron Hargrave this offseason got $21 million from the 49ers. Dexter Lawrence got $22.5 million. Deron Payne, $22.5 million. So knowing the way the salary cap works, I've got to assume 21 to 22 million is probably what Osa's market is right now.
Yeah, and that's going to be a tough number to fit. So the Cowboys are going to have to figure this out. I mean, Marcus and I were talking before the show about this and just kind of how this all fits. And to me, this is why it's important to try to figure out this Dak extension, which breaking news, everyone. Ian Rappaport is reporting that the Cowboys are interested in re-signing Dak Prescott. What a
Sunday news dump if I've ever seen one.
I mean, God, we're so desperate that the Cowboys aren't playing today that we got to make sure we get some news out there. So we're going to overstate the obvious that the Cowboys are interested in re-signing their MVP candidate.
By the way, I also saw a report that the Cowboys are interested in signing CeeDee Lamb. I just wanted to put that out there.
Wow. CeeDee Lamb? They're thinking about re-signing CeeDee Lamb?
Incredible.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous, these guys. So anyways, I do think that, again, that contract's the big kahuna. It makes it shows you how everything else is going to slot. So I think it's going to be important that the Cowboys kind of prioritize getting that done, and then you're going to have a lot of questions about how do you fit in Osa Odighizuwa.
Well, how do you prioritize it? Because obviously Dak is number one. I've got to assume that CD, not in importance, but because of the way the years are left on the deal, CD's number two because he'll be playing on the 5th-year option next year.
Yeah.
Micah Parsons is 3 because he'll be going into year 4, and you typically want to get those deals done. And then even after that, like there's some guys in there that are hard to figure out. But I at this point, I got to assume Osa's number 4, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really think of anybody else that would be ahead of him for the big contract talk. Now, you may have, some conversations with someone like, Tyron Smith about, some short-term stuff, or there may be some those sort of deals to be worked out. But as far as big ticket items that are coming up, you'd have to.
Well, I mean, the only other 2 names that I would mention are guys that are going to be free agents this year: Tony Pollard and Tyler Biadasz. I love Tony Pollard. But I mean, my feelings on paying running backs, especially this would be a 3rd time paying Tony Pollard. Probably. And then Tyler Biadasz, Pro Bowl center, Tyler Biadasz, by the way. It's always hard to move on from a starting center who's been pretty durable, but I don't think you could prioritize him over Osa. Do you?
I wouldn't. I mean, simply because I feel like you've had a hard time kind of getting these defensive tackles, and I feel like the center position is incredibly important. It's a very, very important position in the offensive line. But I also feel like I could get a higher quality center at a similar draft pick than I needed the defensive tackle. So, I think Osa makes some sense to prioritize there as well, just because he's a better player, I think.
And there's only a handful of these guys in the league. You can find average centers and I think Biadasz at times has been better than an average center, but it's much easier to find that than it is to find a defensive tackle. Like, I'm going to give you an example. Against Washington on Thanksgiving, he had 7 pressures and 5 run stops. Against Seattle, didn't have as much success rushing the passer because Seattle got rid of the ball so quickly. But he had 4 run stops in that game. He had the highest graded run defense grade that he's had since week 6. To find a player like him who is just as successful rushing the passer, as you mentioned, number 1 in win rate, and be the 2nd highest graded run defender in the entire NFL this year, it's pretty rare. Like those guys there's only 2 or 3 of those players in the entire league.
Yeah, and then on top of that, to also have the success he does against double teams, which is even more rare for a guy his size, So, I definitely think he should be the priority here, and I think his play has shown it. Just time in and time out, he's gotten that kind of Demarcus Lawrence level, clutch gene that you need, right? Where you need a big play in a moment. And Osa is consistently shown you that he can do that. He can produce, and it's not always a sack. It's not always it's a pressure at the right time, or it's a forced incompletion. Those are the kind of things that you see Osa showing up right when you need him at most, and that's really important thing to have.
Speaking of Demarcus Lawrence, is he having the best season of his career? We will debate that next. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Holidays are coming up. There's gift giving. I don't know about you, Landon, but I love getting gifts that are like experiences or being able to go do something.
Oh yeah.
It's one of the best. If you need that, go do that for yourself. This is some treat yourself time. And BetterHelp can help you. Whether or not your family gives gifts during the holidays, you get to define how you give it to yourself. And the holidays are a great time to do that. So whether it's by starting therapy, maybe going easier on yourself during the tough moments, or treating yourself to a day of complete rest. We're both dads. We both could use a day of complete rest. Remember to give yourself some love this holiday season. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's done entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for any reason at no additional charge. In the season of giving, give yourself what you need with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We wanted to let you know that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, Lena, let's talk about Demarcus Lawrence, who you actually just brought up. I was watching some of his plays from the Seahawks game, and I really started to wonder. I kind of feel like this is Demarcus Lawrence's best year yet. Not because of the sack totals. I think he only has 4 sacks this year. He's had other years where it's double-digit sacks. But just in the ability of making clutch plays, being a great run defender, I don't think I've ever seen him play better.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like this is kind of the role that he was born to play. Like this is he's a gritty run defender. He will hurt you as a pass rusher, but he shouldn't be the only straw stirring the drink there, right? And being able to line him up opposite of Micah Parsons has really kind of made his late career kind of blossom, right? Yeah. I was talking about it with a couple of folks on the teams, including yourself. Like, there may be better defensive end number 2s. There may be defensive end 2s that you could take off of a team and put them on another team, and they would be a better defensive end 1 than Demarcus Lawrence. But I think you would be hard pressed to find a second defensive end that complements his first defensive end the way Demarcus Lawrence does, right? The fact that you can both move Parsons and D-Law around, you see the snaps inside, and even when he takes the snaps inside, like, it's not like a throwaway situation, like, oh, he can only go in there and perform and as a pass rusher and win with speed. Like, when he takes his snaps inside as a defensive tackle, like, he is a legitimately good defensive tackle and can play the run that way, and he can obviously win as a pass rusher. But the ability to kind of play him opposite of Parsons has really, really kind of opened up the versatility of his game that makes him so unique, and allows him to play with a high level of technique, and kind of really just be an interesting kind of curveball alternative to Parsons' fastball when offensive tackles have to face both of them. So, I think as far as you could talk about production. I think that there's multiple ways to measure production. I think he's been as productive as he's ever been, especially when you consider the timing of his plays. I mean, I just don't know that I've seen a player on the defense, maybe Sean Lee, that like consistently made big plays when you needed big plays. And I don't know, again, I don't know how many times I can think on a 3rd down or a 4th down and short, oh, Demarcus Lawrence is going to make this play. And Demarcus Lawrence just makes the play.
Whether it was against Houston last year, right? He did it against Houston to stop him at the goal line. He did it against Detroit last year, forcing a fumble at the 1. I mean, it's just time and time again, he knows how to make the biggest play whenever they need it.
I mean, his career's defined by it. What's the earliest memory you have of Demarcus Lawrence? It's Demarcus Lawrence in the playoffs against the Lions, making that tackle, forced fumble to win that game.
Previously getting the sack and then recovering the fumble and then losing it. And then only like 3 plays later do the exact same thing, and this time holding on to it.
So, yeah, I mean, like, that is who this guy is. To me, like, I think Demarcus Lawrence should go down in the annals as one of the most beloved Cowboys, because he's just the definition of clutch, like, big time player, humble, loves the team, took a pay cut to stay with this team and is playing better than ever. Like, if you don't love Demarcus Lawrence, then I don't know that you love the Cowboys, to be honest.
Well, we're in year 10 of Demarcus Lawrence now. And I like I said at the top, I'm not sure I've ever seen him play better. It just seems like he's not quite the same athlete that he was early in his career, but he's just so much better technically. And he knows how to beat offensive linemen. And he knows how to shoot gaps and how to align himself to get hit, to make the play like he did this week against Seattle. He's been unbelievable. The other thing, I want to give the Cowboys coaching staff some credit here as well. On the year, he's played 404 snaps through 12
That's
games.
great.
You look back at some of those other years, even when he was, playing through injuries and stuff, he was up, close to 1,000 snaps. He's playing like 33 snaps a game, and the Cowboys have figured out a way to best use him in those 30 snaps. And I really think it's prolonged his career. I don't see any reason why, outside of like a major injury, why he couldn't play at this level for the next 2 or 3 years.
I completely agree. I mean, the idea that they have taken away his snaps to the point where he's been able to maintain a level of health. You don't feel like he's overworked. You don't feel like you've lost a step of him.
Nope.
As the season's gone on, he's still incredibly fresh. I mean, that move he made on, I think it was the 4th and 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they tried to reach him and then he backdoored Christopher Cross, Charles Cross. He backdoored Charles. It'd be amazing if he backdoored Christopher Cross. And he backdoored the block on Charles Cross, and he was able to get back into the backfield and he's just all alone in the backfield, right? And so, I mean, it just shows you that even if he hadn't maintained a high level of explosiveness, and I think he's still a decent athlete. It's not he's completely fallen off. His game is aged so well because it's so technique based. I mean, he may be the most technically sound defensive end in all of football. So I tend to agree that ages very well. And as long as he's able to stay healthy, I have no doubts that he can give you productive, good years, 2 or 3 more seasons.
Yeah, this weekend, I was looking at some of the other, like, quote unquote, number 2 edge rushers in the NFL. And you're right. Like, there might be guys that are better athletes and better, like, pure pass rushers, but I'm not taking any of those guys with Parsons over Lawrence because of all the things you can do. You can line them up next to each other. You can move Lawrence inside. And what you really need opposite of Parsons is somebody who's excellent at stopping the run, right? So you just can't avoid Parsons the whole game. I just can't say enough good things about Demarcus Lawrence. It's been a joy to watch him play this year. And once again, this is the best I think I've ever seen him play. Yeah.
And it's fantastic to see. I mean, again, just a guy that has endeared himself to Cowboys fans for a decade at this point, doesn't seem to be slowing down, which is great to see.
All right, we got to switch gears a little bit. We got to talk about somebody who did not perform particularly well against the Seahawks in Week 13. We will get to him next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fastest and the easiest way to buy tickets for all of the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront so that you know you're getting a great deal without the hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We want to let you know that on tomorrow's show, we're going to be answering your Twitter questions. We'll talk about the Eagles, maybe, not winning this division. And what are the Cowboys' odds of winning the NFC East? We'll talk about Shaq Leonard, if he signs with the Cowboys, if he doesn't. So make sure you guys tune in for that. And please make sure that you send your questions into us at Marcus_Mosher, at McCoolBCB. Landon, let's switch gears to Michael Gallup, who has seen his role pretty steadily decline over the last 3 weeks. He played a lot as a run blocker in this game, only saw 1 target. What do the Cowboys need to do here for the rest of the season and moving forward?
I mean, I think they just need to be honest with themselves about how they're going to use him, like not trying to force him into situations because he's got a big contract. Look, this is the unfortunate thing about Gallup is that I feel like he has value to the team. I just think the problem is that there was a misevaluation about what his role should be as in the pecking order of wide receivers, right? Yeah. And I think that he got paid according to that role, and that's also a problem, right? Mm-hmm. But as far as like his play, like I think they found a role that kind of works for him. He you say that he went out there and was blocker. I mean, he did a great job as a blocker. And like, I think he does well in this kind of role as a, fourth, third, kind of hybrid third, fourth wide receiver that kind of comes in. He can be a mismatch for down roster corners. He can help you out to do the dirty stuff. He understands the role that the wide receivers play in the offense, in a holistic sense, not just as a pass receiver. So I think he has value for the team, but I think that, the problem, of course, is the contract. And, now that he's kind of getting, I think, a more appropriate number of snaps in relation to, guys like Tolbert and the other folks that are getting opportunity, Brooks, and, even as we start to see Turpin start to get more snaps there and get more catches, I think you're starting to see his role kind of fill in a little bit more appropriately. I think the obvious issue is, he's being paid more than all those other guys combined, right? So I think that it's fine for now, simply because, it is what it is. The money's already in the bank. I think that the way that they are preventing this from being kind of a double problem, I guess, is, kind of taking the realization that maybe he doesn't need all those extra snaps and actually providing them to the guys that we just mentioned. And not just, going by who's the highest paid, actually going by who the actual, best players are, and realizing that you could still get value and usefulness out of Gallup, maybe just not currently at the rate that you were expecting.
All right, Lane, I've got some stats for you regarding Michael Gallup so far this year. According to Pro Football Focus, 7th percentile in separation percentage versus single coverage, 12th percentile in separation percentage, 33rd percentile in yards after the catch, 30th percentile in receiving grade. He just hasn't been that good. And the problem that at least I see sometimes when you're watching, it seems like he slows down the offense. And I'm almost to the point now where it's like, I'd rather just see Jalen Tolbert and Kavontae Turpin out there, because they give you a little bit more speed and a little bit more dynamism. Like I love Michael Gallup. I love his personality. I love how hard he plays. I love that he will do all the dirty work, but there's just no doubt that this offense is less explosive when he's on the field right now. And maybe things will change this offseason or whatever, but it's just too bad, because he wasn't this player a few years ago. It's a shame how much that injury has robbed him of all of his athleticism.
Yeah, without a doubt. Just a guy that, was a different player before the injury. And that's the thing, is that I don't know if it just requires, more time to get further healthier, this even further away from the injury for him to get back to something close to that. But it's been a long time now. It's been a lot. He's had a long recovery from this injury.
So let me give you some options next year. If the Cowboys release him outright, they would only save $800,000, but they would get a pretty big cap savings in 2025. Or you could June 1st cut him and save $9.5 million this year or in 2024. Or you could just hold on to him and hope that he gets better, figuring that, hey, he's still somebody that Dak Prescott likes. He would only be 28 years old, and then kind of just reassess where things are at 2025. You could cut him in 2025 and save $7.5 million.
Yeah, these are all things that are going to have to weigh in the offseason. I think at this point, you just get through where you are, figure out, where his role is at that point. But I can't imagine that he's coming back at that same kind of, level on the same contract. So
and maybe you approach him like to ask him to take a pay cut and say, hey, we will keep you around here. We just can't have you at this number. But I also could see this landing being a situation similar to like what the Cowboys did with Amari Cooper, into the fact like you're a good player, but we kind of need these snaps open to other players to let other, guys grow into a role. And maybe the Cowboys just view Jalen Tolbert as a better player. And they feel like if they keep Michael Gallup, even on a reduced contract, it's going to hurt the offense a little bit. So let's just move on. Let Jalen Tolbert kind of grow into that wide receiver 3 role and move on.
I have a hard time. It will be tough to keep Gallup next year because if he's not playing special teams and he's like your 4th wide receiver, he's taking a lot of money. It's like you've got 2 guys beneath him that you want to see, and that both will play special teams, at least currently. And Turpin too.
I was going to say 3. I mean, because Turpin has not been perfect as a receiver. He's dropped a couple passes that he's probably should have grabbed, but he's also made some really big plays, whether that, in the 49ers game, he caught that incredible touchdown. And then
that probably should have been Gallup's touchdown, honestly. Still.
But it's just his quickness is something that the Cowboys offense has needed.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he's 2nd on the team in touchdown receptions or 3rd. He's got 4 touchdown receptions.
It's ridiculous.
So yeah, I mean, I think that they clearly look, and he's a guy that has a very clearly defined role. That's very straightforward. And frankly, even Brooks and Tolbert, even while they're figuring them out, they slot in very nicely because they are working their way to wide receiver 3 and 4, and they are big time special teams players. Gallup is in a situation where he's being paid as a wide receiver 2 and he's performing as a wide receiver 4. And that's obviously problematic, but it's made even more problematic by the fact that he's not rosterable as a wide receiver 4. He doesn't play special teams. He's not going to go out there and run down kickoffs or play on the punt team. So I think that's really what makes the everything kind of gross with this situation is that he's not a great roster fit. He's not a great money fit. You like the guy. He's a great personality fit in the locker room, but everything else is kind of a mess right now.
I will say, if he's going to have a breakout game, it does feel like this game against Philly could be one that he plays well because he knows his opponent really well. He's had big games against Philly in the past. And the corners that he's going to be going against aren't particularly fast and athletic either. Right. Mm-hmm. So maybe this is his game and the Cowboys are trying to save him for certain moments. But if it doesn't happen this week, I don't know. It's just a bummer. I wish this would have worked out better for all parties involved. But right now it's trending in a direction where they probably are going to part ways this offseason. I think you would agree.
Yeah. I mean, even the best case scenario in the situation would be maybe he recovers during the offseason better from his knee injury. But I think at that point, it's probably too little too late for the Cowboys, So
I would agree. All right. That is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Again, you can check out all of our shows on YouTube. We post videos every single day. We are free and available on all platforms. Go follow Landon on Twitter @McCoolBCB. I'm @Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.